Hi there, this is Kate Hurley again. I wanted to read you one more excerpt from my book. This book is called Getting Naked Later, Making Sense of the Unexpected Single Life. It's a relaunch, and there are two new chapters, one on divorce and one on online dating. And it's a book for singles, younger singles and especially older singles. And it's also for people who love the singles in their life, who want to understand them better, singles in the church who are often overlooked. So I'm just going to read an excerpt from chapter 8, which is called The Great Name Changer. I am many things other than a single woman. Lover of God, lover of people, traveler of the world, teacher, lover of the poor and downcast, avid reader, overcomer of a chronic disease, ridiculous enjoyer of dark chocolate and good cheese, lover of nature, worshiper. But single is often the only label I give myself. The labels you give yourself and that others give you slowly build a path you follow, like water in the crevice of a rock. Unless you consciously direct the water somewhere else by believing what God says about you, you will flow wherever that label wants to take you. I'm going to skip just a little bit. Here's a story about labels. As a social experiment, billboards were put up in two different cities. The billboard had a picture of the same full-figured woman. One billboard said, "I think I'm fat. What do you think?" The other billboard said, "I think I'm beautiful. What do you think?" A survey was given for each city. About 80% of the people who saw the billboard that said, "I think I'm fat," thought the model was fat. Likewise, 80% of the people who looked at the "I think I'm beautiful" billboard decided she was beautiful. Who you believe you are changes everything. The biblical story of Jacob illustrates the same idea, that you often become what you label yourself and what others label you. In Hebrew culture, the firstborn son was given two different endowments: a birthright, which allowed him to take on his father's name in social and legal matters, and a double portion of the inheritance. The firstborn was a coveted position, and there is no clearer example of a man who coveted this position than Jacob. Jacob came out of the womb with his hand outstretched, grasping his twin brother Esau's heel, desperate to win in the race for firstborn. It seems that even in the first seconds of his life, Jacob was trying to control his own destiny. He was given the name Jacob, a name that means deceiver or supplanter, which also could be interpreted as one who wants to be what he is not. Sound familiar? Not surprisingly, the one who was given the name deceiver became one of the most notorious deceivers in the Bible. For most of his life, Jacob tried to reverse the birth order. His life was defined by this perceived injustice. To put it bluntly, Jacob wanted to be someone else so much that he became a control freak. When Esau came in starving after hunting, Jacob offered food in exchange for his birthright. Later, Jacob pretended to be Esau when his father Isaac was dying, so that he would receive the blessing, a double portion of the inheritance. Jacob wasn't firstborn, but he thought he should have been. Maybe if he worked really hard at it, if he spent his life trying to change it, he could trick himself, his family, and even his God into believing that he was firstborn. Ironically, God had told his mother that the older will serve the younger. All of this manipulation was for naught, as Jacob would have eventually been the one in authority, even without his control freakish ways. My trials look different from Jacob's. Jacob rehearsed over and over in his head that if he had been firstborn, he would have had all that he wanted. I rehearsed over and over in my head that if God would give me a husband that adores me, I would have all that I want. If I had children who loved the Lord, I would have all that I want. If my career flourished and people around the world listened to my music and read this book, I would have all that I want. If my relationships did not fail and I were never rejected, I would have all that I want. I too want to be someone I am not. I know God understands this struggle, but I also know He doesn't want me to constantly mull over how unsatisfied I am with my life. He knows that when I do that, I am living as one who wants to be who she is not. I, like Jacob, often want God's promises sooner than He has given them to me. I want my right to marry, and I throw caution to the wind and say, by God, I'm going to get it. But the truth is, if I try to manipulate God's promise, the fruit will be slavery rather than freedom. If I refuse God's help and try to do it on my own, if I become obsessed with figuring out how to get what I want when I want it, I will become a slave to my desires. I will sacrifice my peace for my expectations. These control freak tendencies can even look like godly practices sometimes. Maybe if I pray enough, fast enough, if I let go enough, these actions turn into slavery if my motivation is to get what I want rather than to get closer to God. I mourn when I think about how I've treated God at times. This is my Jesus, who feels deeper and loves more passionately than anyone in the world. This is the one who has journeyed with me, who has comforted me, and who has been faithful to me every second of my life. This is the one who bled and died so He could be near me when I ache for a husband. And now in my pain, I often reduce Him to a genie in a bottle who grants me wishes if I rub Him the right way. Forgive me, Lord. Forgive me. After Jacob stole the birthright and the father's blessing from his older brother, he married and lived many years in prosperity. One year, Jacob traveled with his family to Canaan. He heard news that Esau, whom he hadn't seen since he swindled him, was coming to meet him with an army of 400 men. Terrified, Jacob sent gifts to Esau, hoping to ease the wrath his brother might bring against him. That same night, he took his family to cross a river called Jabbok. Jabbok means a place of emptying out or a place of passing over, and was a symbol of struggle to the Hebrew people. Jacob sent his wives and possessions across the river and was left alone. What an incredible picture. The things he had schemed for, his inheritance and his family, were the things he needed to let go of in order to find his true identity. As he watched the dreams he based his identity on fade away in the distance, he stood alone on the other side, stripped down to the barest part of who he was. And then we go into how Jacob and God wrestle. At the end of their wrestling, Jacob asked for a blessing. God could have offered Jacob many things for this blessing: more wealth, more fame, more wives, but God offered none of these. None of these things, because He knew there was one thing that Jacob wanted more than anything else, and that was what God wanted to give him. He offered Jacob a new name. Jacob took that offer gladly. After being called deceiver every day of his life, he was ready for a new identity. God changed Jacob's name to Israel. Israel means one who wrestles with God. God gave him the name because Jacob struggled with God and man and overcame. He was now named Overcomer. Overcomer became Jacob's new identity. He was no longer deceiver. God changed his name, and that changed everything. Jacob's new name, Israel, was the name that was given as an inheritance to his descendants. It is the name that is still used today for the chosen people, a people that we as the body of Christ have been grafted into. We are no longer called manipulators or supplanters. We are the ones who have wrestled with God and have come out changed, the ones who have met him face to face. What is the name that God has given you? What is the name that will overcome your insecurities, the lies you have been told? Take a moment and ask God what this new name, this new identity is for you. I want to wrestle with God, even if it is difficult. I want my name, my new identity. When I wrestle with him, he will tell me to ask the hard questions. He might not give me the answers I want. He might not give me any answers, but it is his choice. He is God. In the end, I know that I want a God who is free, not a God who answers as if prayers are spells I can cast on my life by saying the right words. I don't want a God like the millions of trinket gods on street corners around the world who can be bribed with offerings. I want a God who is bigger than me, who is stronger than me, and who comes down and wrestles with me so that we can be close. And after my wrestling, I may walk away with a limp like Jacob. But receiving a limp is better than pushing God away. For in my wrestling, I touch God. I touch the God who speaks a word and stars and moon and universe are made. I touch the God who opens his heart and all things tender and all things passionate and all things beautiful flow out like water. That is the God I wrestle with. He and I will touch, and sometimes it will hurt, but I will come away changed. I will not leave with the answers to all my questions, but I will have seen the face of God, and I will see love in his eyes. Maybe my name will be changed like Jacob's was. Maybe I will no longer simply name myself single, because I will have seen his eyes, and I will know the truth. I am named beloved. What names do you give yourself? What names do other people give you? Divorced, poor, abandoned, sick, widowed, fatherless, failure? Not anymore. Wrestle with your God and know the truth. You are his beloved. Thank you so much for listening. And again, it's just Getting Naked Later, making sense of the unexpected single life. It's going to have a big sale the first week, so that's a great week to get it. And if you are somebody who works with singles or is part of a church or a church ministry that wants to minister to singles, please reach out to me and I will send you a free copy of this. Digital form, or even I do have a few physical copies left. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great day, and I really hope these words minister to you today.